Let's
Okay.
get started, okay?
Okay. Okay, it's Pete.
Sure.
Oh, thank you.
I'll just
Gonna be
have a seat for,
prepared.
You want to sit down and add? Okay,
you're on the air, Pete, I just started.
sorry.
Let's begin. Did everybody have a chance to review the draft minutes from the December 6th meeting?
Yes.
Any changes?
I don't see.
Okay, I move that we accept the minutes for December 6th as draft.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And what we,
And-
first hearing is until 7:10, so what?
Exactly. I actually, there was a person, Mark and Nicholas Basti, who live in Bayberry Street. He was the DCR person. He worked for, he said worked for DCR. He built that, the bridge across Gulf Brook. Did you see that
I
off the
didn't
Gulf
see
Brook
it. I meant to
Conservation
go
Area?
and look at it.
It's really cool. So I just wanted to send them, him and his son had done this work, so I thought they brought the material in, they lugged it all the way in there. He knows how to do it, which is really great, and there was very little disturbance, and now you can actually, you're not shimmying across logs. The Gulf Brook Conservation Area off of Oak Hill, go in there and keep going until you get to the brook, and head just veer a little to the right, and there's a, nice bridge there, which we've all been, you can't jump it. You can't jump it anymore, the brook. There's enough water, so, but I thought that was really nice. So and like I said, they paid for the materials, they brought the materials in
Wonderful.
on sleds, so I thought that was really a nice contribution to the town, conservation land, so. So I just thought, and we don't have bills payable.
Okay.
We thought we might have something from Emily, but we will have it for the next meeting.
Next one, yeah.
So, and just reminding people that to take their ethics exam, Lisa, the town clerk, is trying to get everybody on the same schedule. And I think, and we'll talk about the open space and recreation plan.
So what part of Gulf Brook was that again?
It's like, going the Gulf Brook Conservation Area off of Oak Hill Street, you've got dirt chestnut behind you,
Yes.
and you go straight into the woods, and as you keep following, as soon as you hit the brook, you can tell there's a lot of downed trees, and people usually will go across the trees, or try to. I mean, I don't know how many times I've seen people fall in, which isn't really funny, but I guess I've done it too, so it's okay. But I mean, it's a pretty good stance, and they built a bridge across, so I thought it was, and they came and
very
said
nice.
that they thought it would be, they'd like to make a contribution, and he's done bridges for DCR before, Department of Conservation and Recreation.
Do you have something for people to sign, the audience to sign for the
Yes.
first?
Actually,
Yeah, did I cross over Gulf Brook just 2 days ago?
oh, you did?
Yeah, by the,
This
what's the
is
street
that,
there?
and,
What happened to the muddy area as you walk in?
that's really not too bad either, someone put a little bridge there too,
Oh, really?
which may have been the same
Been there in
person.
a while, you can see. Probably.
And so, the first one is 30 to 32 Dow Street.
Okay.
I actually brought a couple of copies of the plans which were updated. And is it not quite? Okay. We can have, we get this. Give me one, Pete. I know, 706. Has anyone been looking at the open space plan? Have you been looking at it?
No, I haven't.
Just got it.
You're way behind.
Look at the pictures.
Yeah, Martin gave me publisher, the IT guy.
Oh, is that
He
right?
gave me publisher, yeah, because I put that in a different, I,
Cool.
yeah, and the maps were done by NEMCOG, but the rest of it was done really, just
wish I could remember.
coordinated effort, so.
How much has changed since the last time I looked at it about a year ago?
Quite a bit,
I thought.
quite a bit. Yeah, actually, Fish and Wildlife just closed on the 2 properties along the Nissitissit on Mill Street, like about 9 acres, I want to say.
Good.
Excuse me. They did that Thursday or Friday of last week. So,
where was this?
right on Mill Street, right across from Shattuck Oil.
Yeah.
There's an old white house that was for sale. Well, the house sold, but there's 9 acres that go along the river, so that riverfront will be protected. And Fish and Wildlife
Not
will own it.
behind the senior center.
No, that's still in the works too. That's being
Okay.
surveyed,
Yeah,
appraisals.
the house said like 9 acres.
Yes.
Oh, they bought it?
Yeah, Fish and Wildlife bought that. They bought the land. The house itself is sold.
Right.
Just an individual who, somebody will own the house. All the riverfront will have the protection now.
Oh, I missed that. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Is that on Mill Street, the
On
house
Mill
on the
Street.
corner?
Yeah, the house, the white old, the house,
Yeah.
the Newell property.
Okay.
So it's a big white house, and actually someone started already doing some work there.
Okey-dokey. That
So-
looks good.
And that adds to the land trust, 24 acres on Jewett, Dirt Jewett.
Okay, let's begin the 7:10 hearing. It's a notice of intent filed by Kurt Gear and Robert Anthony for construction of an addition at 30 to 32 Dow Street. And the project is within the buffer zone of the bordering vegetated wetlands. Okay, and the wet was created on or before May 6, 2002, so it's exempt from the local bylaw. Did they pay,
We're waiting for a
And
$7 check for the,
both.
underpayment, and then so the 2 fees are paid, and
Must have
I've
pressed the wrong
received.
button on the calculator that day.
So I've got everything now. So the legal fee and the green
what,
cards.
green cards, you got that too then?
Yes, I got that the other day when we were out at the site.
Okay, wonderful.
The only thing is this, an earlier order of conditions requires a 30-foot no disturb. And so I already discussed it with Matt. And
Right,
he's
and my
talking
client
about-
acknowledges that.
Okay, great. Okay, so go ahead.
I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. Essentially, my client just wants to put a 32 by 24 garage slab on grade. The area where we sited it is essentially coming up the existing driveway from 30 to 32 Dow. On the right-hand side, you have a strip of woods, and then a cart path farther on to the right, just before you hit the abutting lot where a logging operation had gone when the house was being constructed a long time ago. In this strip of woods is a bordering vegetated wetland. I reconstructed the original flagging. Flagging, essentially, the wetland had been expanded or changed, so it was in the same shape. So essentially, when you see wetland flag 1 right here, it veers off, and actually a portion of the logging road actually crossed the wetland a long time ago when they cut the trees down. However, the hydrology, the vegetation on that part of the logging road have reestablished since. So what we did was we sited this area in a flat part of the strip between the drive and the wetland. It will maintain a distance in the corner of a minimum of 32 feet. From the wet, it will go no closer than that. And essentially, the 30-foot line, which I scaled off here, will be measured in the field. Wattles and sill fence will be put along that 30-foot line, and that will be, like, in this area, the absolute limit of work. It would demarcate both the limit of work and the 30-foot no-touch zone. So after I went on the site with Paula, I took my client. My client, Mr. Guerra, is actually he is a pilot. He flies for UPS, so he's home 3 days a week, and then he has to fly down to, like, Kentucky, Alabama. He's flying freight down there. So fortunately, was the day I had him home, and we went around and to the wetland flags, and I measured out the 30-foot zone and showed him and educated him as to what that was all about. And let him know that was on his order of conditions as a perpetual condition. So it stays on the deed, and he was fine.
How long ago was it originally flagged?
That I do not know. I went out and
You were able to resurrect it?
Yeah, I went out and looked at it before the snow came down. I went out and delineated. I actually initially flagged it in the summer, then I went back out in the fall and the leaves thing, because I wanted to get a better look at the ground vegetation, because there's a lot of thorny brush out there at the edge of the wetland. I know I've been in front of you guys once or twice just to tell you who I am. I am an environmental consultant. I'm also a conservation field agent as well, so I have worked for other communities and still do to this day. I've been delineating wetlands since 1990, all over the state, both coastal and inland.
Any other questions, comments? Does anybody in the audience have anything like that? No? Okay, and
The,
you will be going out, of course, to verify everything.
I had already gone out earlier with Matt.
And I read that, but you're gonna verify the staking and.
Definitely.
Yeah, when I put the wattles up and everything before he begins construction, I'll make sure that the wattles are in the right spot. What I'm gonna do with this, he's not doing anything until the spring. When everything is melted and he's about a month away, I'm gonna go out, double check the flags, stake out the 30-foot no-touch zone, have him put the wattles in, and Paul come out and take a look
Okay,
and see.
that does it, fine.
now, is it realistic that he can construct that close to the 30-foot without encroaching?
Quite easily, because it actually veers away, and it's a flat lot, it's a flat part of the lot.
Okay.
So, and we staked it out, I mean, he doesn't have to go in that lane, it's only that small corner that's in,
Mhm,
so
I
he
see
can
that.
come in from this way.
I move that we issue an order of conditions for this project.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
You work efficiently.
Stay dry, folks.
Miserable out there.
Okay, thank you. Want to keep that?
You know that, Matt?
Yeah, we'll see you soon.
Yep.
I'll take that. We need these.
Pass one around for the next one.
Yeah,
Dad wanted to get a next one. You get another one?
yeah. Do we have a pen? Put it right on here. So this is 50 Elm Street.
What, the pen? Oh, yeah, I didn't know if you needed it. So
Thank you.
it's not technically my pen, but.
I'm a pen klepto.
Oh, okay. No, this is a house pen.
Okay.
And there's a pen with this too, so we're watching you.
It will no longer be the host pen. Don't watch me.
Do you need a pen?
You can share.
There you go. Here's for the taker.
Excuse me. Sorry. I'm a little cold. But I'm better. Much better. I think everybody's had a cold.
With the house pen there.
You're right here. You'll sign it anyway.
Just for the practice.
Sure, I'll throw it in the pile.
What's a waddle?
A what?
I know, I don't want to sound dumb.
Oh, no, they're like mesh. It has like, you could have hay in it, usually hay. It's usually stuffed. It's a tubey thing, so there's different types, but some of them contour nicely with the ground. So it's instead of doing hay bales.
Yeah.
So I can show you
It's
some.
staked about every 2 or 3 feet.
Okay.
And you put the stake right through it.
Like
This
through
one-
it.
This showing a detail here on one.
Oh, see, I could have just.
Okay.
This is the next part.
Good.
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha. I
And
think I
then
got it.
reusable, Chris. I mean, you probably use them up to 6 months.
Yeah, yeah.
What's that?
I don't think I have a current agenda.
Easy to put
Oh,
in.
really? How about
Yeah,
this?
it's easy.
I have like 12 of them, Chris. I have to laugh.
I have to kind of.
January 3rd.
Okay, so this will be 2 stages, because this is 50 and 40, but the first one will be 50, which we actually have a
Yep.
DEP number
This
for.
one for a couple minutes.
We have the 2 of them here.
Yes.
We can get everything. That's insurance.
I should have a map of Pepperell in here.
We do.
Yeah, I was thinking about
But
that.
usually we have it, like, sometimes we use it to, like, put other plans up, so it's not always visible, so.
Yeah, no, never know. It's good.
At one point, I was thinking of bringing my laptop in and just having them zooming into different
Oh,
parts
yes.
of the town that we're covering.
Does that
Yeah.
have street names on it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it does?
Yeah,
We had a larger room at the
So you
time.
want to see where this
so
project
projector.
is, or?
I know.
I refer to it all the time.
that one's
Well,
48.
like I know where the roads are, but sometimes I can't place
better,
it.
it's
Oh
good
my
to look
gosh,
at the
it's
map.
mobile.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
not
let's-
kidding around.
I know.
So what are you looking for right now?
Elm Street.
Elm Street,
Elm, yeah, Elm is down.
right here. That's where we are, it's the town hall. So we're down in here someplace.
Right off the
So it'll be
Shirley.
these two lots
Okay.
right here. Here's
Look-
Shirley
look at
Street,
you,
Oh.
pointing.
and here's the two lots. That's 48 and that's 50. And this is the conservation land, the Sherwood Conservation Trust,
Ah,
and Town of
okay.
Pepperell,
Yeah,
Kai's property.
yeah.
And those two lots are, they're developed over now.
They're not yet, that's what they're proposing tonight. Those are the ones that were left over from 2007 and 2008, when the town and the Conservation Trust both kind of worked with the Trust for Public Land and the Kai's family to purchase it.
Do they fall under the bylaw? Yeah,
These would,
yeah. It's 2002 is the bylaw.
Yes. Okay, so this is the 7:20
I graduated.
public hearing. It's a notice of intent filed by George Kais for construction of a single-family dwelling, driveway, and sewage disposal system at 50 Elm Street. It's located within the buffer zone of a bordering vegetated wetlands. Let's see, it was created after May 6, 2002, so there's no exemption to the local bylaw. What about the fees?
we need the 6732 for the legal fee, which I,
Did Mr. Kai's not mail it directly to you?
oh, I'm sorry, we did, we got that. Oh, I'm sorry, we did get those. I have all these little notes, I have so many little notes on all these
And
things.
you get some sort of proof of mailing?
Green cards,
Green
that's the
cards?
only thing you, sorry.
There's lot
Okay.
two, too, for the next one, if you want to go something.
Oh, wait, oh, okay, fine.
Keep that one here.
We have a few.
You can have it. You can use it there if you want. Oh, you can't.
Yes, I don't want to scare poor Neil again.
Keep him on
He
his
did
toes.
send it, it was,
There we go,
Yeah,
okay.
he was real efficient, so to make sure it got to there, he mailed it directly to you. I believe Tom is here, so I don't know about it. Thank you. Oh, here we go. Good thing we don't play for the Patriots.
That's for sure.
If it's hard for you to see, I brought some reduced colored prints to match what's on the board here. So let me just get the right lot.
The 48 and 50, that's up to 'em.
I did it back, it's like 50 is at 7:20, 48 is 7:30.
Take one, pass it around. This is the right one. Lot one.
Just need it all the same.
If you- Yeah, as I say, it's what I have here, but sometimes you can
Did you sign
zoom in a little bit closer.
Do you want one, Tom?
Sure. I mean, I've been up there like several times.
The one you're passing around is 50, but that's okay.
Yeah, 50 is the first one.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's-
Yeah, the numbers are weird. It's lot one, but it has a higher house number.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is lot 150 Elm.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. So I'll give you a quick presentation. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so here's Elm Street here at the bottom of the page, directly opposite where Shirley Street is junction to it. Off to the right here is the parking for the town conservation land and the trails over in this area. So that's kind of give you an idea where we are. The property's highest point is right here, and it slopes gradually to the wetland at the rear of the property. Lot one is a 1.86 acre piece of land, and to kind of give you an idea of how things are shaded here, the blue is the wetlands. This is the 50-foot no disturb zone, and then the 100-foot 100-foot buffer zone. We're proposing a driveway off of Elm Street, away from the intersection, which is graded fairly nicely, not very steep at all, turning into the proposed house box here in red. The house is designed in a way to fit the landscape where there's a walkout basement to the rear of the rear of the house. And because the sewage disposal system here in the yellow raised up in the front of the house, so the front foundation will be backfilled up against the foundation, giving us a nice walkout in the back. We're proposing a septic tank followed by a pump chamber off to the side of the house. And then the force main coming up to the leaching facility back in the front. We also have a proposed deck off the back corner of the house. The green dashed line is the proposed siltation barrier and limit of work demarcation. We are proposing a combination silt fence and the wattles, or what we call a filter sock, all the same thing, which are those, long tubes of netting with the straw in there. The proposed construction within the buffer zone in this area where the green and the here is approximately 7,000 square feet of disturbance. Minimal grading, we have about a 3-foot grade change at the back of the house and then tapering off to the 50-foot no disturb zone. There is a small portion of the driveway in the buffer zone, and but the proposed leaching facility is completely outside of the buffer zone. We have added, from the original submittals, 4x4 granite posts here at the property line where the 50-foot intersects, right behind the back of the house, nearest to where the proposed deck is. And we propose a third one where the 50-foot intersects with the stone wall that's out there. There's an interior stone wall. And then that interior stone wall almost acts as a, the 50-foot is on the opposite side of that stone wall. The property line is actually not this interior wall, but this further one here on the outside. So, construction is in the middle of the property. House is set back from the road. Trying to keep the character of the neighborhood, allow some trees to be in the front along the road. And it is a wooded area, but you can see the wetlands from the road. There's not a lot of underbrush there. You can see pretty clearly through there. The nearest portion of the deck to the wetlands is 60 feet, and the foundation at its nearest point is 73 feet. So I guess with that, I'll turn it over to the commission here for questions.
Okay, and I understand for both this and 50, Board of Health has the hearings, next week on this, or?
Yeah, they were submitted all at the same time. I haven't heard back from the Board of Health. I'm not anticipating any.
Pretty simple.
Right, it's pretty straightforward. The testing was all nice soil testing out there.
Anybody on the commission have any questions?
Yeah, how far is the deck from the 50-foot?
Well, it's 60 feet from the wetlands, so about 10 feet
10
from the,
feet.
10 feet.
It's not a lot of space.
Anybody else?
And this does require the 50-foot because of the bylaw.
Right.
So that's why Neil had shown, I suggested the markers. I prefer markers rather than vegetation because people cut the vegetation down.
And we put a note down here explaining exactly what Paula had sent along about 1 foot exposed and the 3x4 sign.
Mm-hmm.
So that note clearly marks that on there.
You only have one person in the audience. Would you like to make a comment, or you're okay?
Well, I have questions, but that's
Go
because
ahead.
of my ignorance rather than
Fine, go ahead.
So, what's the difference between a 100-foot, why do you have a 100-foot and a 50-foot if you can build in the 100-foot? Does the 100-foot mean anything, or?
Yes, any project that's proposed within 100 feet has to be reviewed by the Conservation Commission.
Okay, so that's all
It's
that
a state,
means.
it's a state law, right?
Got it, okay.
The 50-foot offset is local bylaw for new houses, new construction.
And then, when did they flag the definition of the wetlands, so that they know they're 50 feet away?
We flagged them in August of this past year, 2016.
August of 2016? Correct. So when we're in a drought? right?
Well, it's not just by water though.
Okay.
It's based on soils, in which we have logs of our soil probes that we do in the ground. The colors of the soil will tell us what is a hydric soil. And there's also looking at the plant community, the vegetation. Some plants like to grow in wetlands and some don't. So, and then some could be either or.
Okay.
So our submittal included all that data stating how we came to this conclusion of where that line exactly is.
Yeah, I was out there.
Okay, okay, is
Very
anybody
specific.
okay with
Gray
this?
soil is a hydric.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the type of soil,
Right.
not the wetness of the soil at that moment.
Right.
They basically look at three things: real, visual water, soils,
Hydrology.
hydraulic soils, and plant community. And the combination of those three things, our wetland specialist determines where that line is, and then the town reviews it.
Okay.
And that would have been included in that filing that
Yeah.
because Neil had sent the filing and I forwarded to you. Some of that information's in there about the soils, the plant community, and, you know, how they determined it. So if you have any questions, come by the office.
I have a question, how far that way is that pond inspector?
That'll be on there's one more lot to the
One more
left
lot,
here,
yeah.
and then it's quite a bit of ways that way, yes.
Okay. DEP's wetland policy is 86-1, recommends for a project that has not been reviewed yet by the Board of Health, that we include the statement that no work permitted by this order may begin unless and until the applicant receives a subsurface sewage disposal permit from the town Board of Health, which complies with both requirements of Title V and any more stringent local standards, and until a copy of said permit is sent to the Conservation Commission. I don't feel it has to be sent to DEP. They
Yeah.
include that in the statement, but I don't think that's
Exactly.
necessary. So I'm going to issue an order condition for this project.
Yeah. What, second?
Yes, somebody. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, sign this.
You could say I move order.
What, did I say that?
No,
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna order, I'm gonna do an order. Or I didn't hear it.
No, I might not. Okay. And now we begin the next one. Obviously, we don't have any more
Yeah.
audience.
It's
That's
7:30, it's officially
Here's that
7:30?
No, but I don't think we're gonna worry about it. We've
Pretty
got a lot
close.
to do tonight, so.
Extra maps from the
Is
50.
this a new one?
No, that's the
I
first
can
one.
make sure we have.
Yeah, to you then.
You want a copy of that now?
We have this again.
Okay.
Copy of that now?
I got it, thank you.
You sign
I'll
in
sign
again?
in again, sure.
So let me just,
I know, it's a lot of paperwork, you know?
That's right.
paperwork here. Okay, so this hearing is scheduled 7:30. It's notice intent filed by Dorothy Kies for construction, a single-family dwelling, driveway, and sewage disposal system at 48 Elm Street. It's located within the buffer zone of a bordering vegetated wetlands. Let's see, there's no exemption because this lot was created after May 6, 2002. Okay, so you've paid for the NOI. What about the legal notice? That's been paid, you just got that, and you got the green cards too.
Yes.
Okay.
Here's the next one.
Sure, thanks.
This one doesn't have a DEP number. Oh, you want me to do this one, or? Oh, this is the new one.
So did that one have a
You guys
DP
have
number?
The first one did, yeah.
But this one didn't, that makes no sense. We're not gonna worry about that, though.
You want one, Bob?
For a part of the two homes?
Between each other,
Yeah.
we have
Make sure.
57 feet from the property line going this way for that lot,
50.
plus another 63 feet, so they're about 110
Did you
feet.
guys?
You want one?
Sure, I already have one, I think I have it at home.
What's that?
You don't have that one?
Oh, that's you. I'm missing somebody on this last one.
What?
Rob, Chris?
Yeah?
Chris isn't on here.
Which one is this? Is this the first one?
This is the
Order
first one.
condition.
Second page.
Oh, but I didn't sign either.
Oh, you signed this, but you didn't sign this one. I'm sorry.
My bad.
I just wanna make sure we have everybody else.
It's 48.
Okay, I don't think that just
Which
had
is
one
this
page.
one.
Okay.
This is one page of that, one that's on it.
Oh, you have Tim, right? Thank you.
Which one is that? 50. 48.
This one's 48.
Alright.
Okay,
You'll notice that they're under different ownership. The first one we worked on was George Kai's, and this is Dorothy Kai's. So this is known as Lot 2, which has been designated house number 48 by the Assessor's Department. And we just talked about this property. So again, in the blue is the wetlands, the 50-foot no disturb zone here, the 100-foot buffer, 100-foot buffer zone here. The green again is the limit of fill, the siltation barrier, limit of disturbance and siltation barrier. Very similar setup, driveway coming in, fairly flat driveway coming into the proposed house box, proposed deck off the rear of the house. And this one, the entire sewage disposal system and septic tank are in the front of the house, between the house and the road. The house is set back about 90 feet from the front property line. So it comes out to the proposed septic tank, and then we have leaching trenches here in the front. It's oriented that way compared to the other site just because we set the trenches according to the contours of the land. So the contours on this property were going from the road to the wetlands. This is the high point. We're on the side of the slope where it's going this way towards the wetlands. So again, we set the trenches according to the topography. Sloping this way, we set the trench along with that slope and step them down with the lay of the land. So the entire sewage disposal system, as you can see, is outside the 100-foot buffer zone. The entire house is also outside the 100-foot buffer zone. The proposed deck just is inside the 100-foot buffer zone, and just a turnout area for the driveway is inside the 100-foot buffer zone. So this one fits a little bit, further away from the wetlands than the previous design. It's fairly straightforward. The nearest corner of the house to the wetlands is 102 feet. The nearest corner of the driveway is 72 feet. And as recommended, we also added some granite post markers along the 50-foot. We talked about this one along the property line already. Added another one here closest to where the deck is. One at this location just based on the way it arcs around. One opposite the corner of the driveway, and then one more over closer to the road. I didn't want to put it right up on the property line because then they'll maybe get that confused with
The property.
a road bound. Rather than a 50-foot marker. So again, fairly straightforward. Most of the earth disturbance and grading is going to happen outside the buffer zone. It's set up again with the walkout basement, so there'll be very little grading required in the behind the house. But obviously, we set the disturbance here just, to have a little bit of a backyard.
Ooh, that's a joke.
And the wetlands were flagged at the same time that the first lot was. Again, that data is in the attachment A.
any
Is it not a
questions,
raised
comments?
field?
Go ahead.
This is also a raised field, yes.
I don't see a pump chamber.
Yeah, okay, good question. He's wondering, is this a raised field and there's no pump chamber? The first one, we did a pump chamber because we ran the plumbing out of the basement of the house and pumping uphill. This one, the tank is out the front. We're just doing gravity feed out through the foundation wall, not through the basement floor. So,
No laundry down in the basement?
I'm sorry?
No laundry down in the basement?
No, I guess no laundry. Well, you can do laundry in the basement. That has a pump that
That
will
has
go
a
up to the.
pump. Does it go uphill that far?
Just up to where if they do it
Yeah.
right close to where the sewer pipe
Yeah.
leaves the foundation, yes. But it's preferred to have a gravity-fed system in some situations. But if you have a nice walkout basement, some people like having that bathroom in the basement as well, so. It's an either or. If they decide to do that, they could still do a tank out the side and this way and pump up, but that we'll leave that up to them. It's an added expense of about $4,000 or $5,000 to do a pump system, or to add a pump chamber and
Might slow 'em down.
and all that work, so.
Yeah, it might slow them down.
Expensive bathroom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Any questions on that?
That's not cool.
Audience, no questions? Anybody else in the commission, any questions, comments? Okay, I
Yes, sir.
move Reissue order conditions for this project with the same Board of Health note that we had on the other
Second.
project. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, appreciate your time. Thanks for coming out on a rainy night. Better than snow, right?
Exactly.
Thank you. See, in the past, we
If
put
you don't want 'em, I'll
blueberry
take 'em, sure.
bushes. We put
Oh,
blueberry
yeah.
bushes along the 50-foot, and then we go back and somebody would have cut them down.
Yeah.
So the blueberry bushes are all the
Mow 'em.
vegetation, so if we don't put something more permanent like the granite markers with a little signs on them, then what we find is people will cut the vegetation down, and we really, the 50-foot means no disturbance, nothing gets touched back there.
Right.
So because of the
Blueberries
don't
bylaw.
want
probably
it.
not a good choice anyway, because they move.
Yeah, I
I
know.
have the PDF in black and white.
All right, thank you very much.
If you have any questions, like you said, let me know.
I just was curious.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, so you see in the bylaw, it requires at least 50 feet for any project, like you said, any project within 100 feet requires a filing. That's all, it's a state master.
Sitting is like.
If you wanna see anything or any,
Couldn't,
okay, thanks.
any length,
Dos.
ankle issues in my life, so
Yeah.
I'm like,
There's
Supposed to
48,
get better after this, so.
48 Mylar.
Oh, thank you.
Arthur Struggling. I had a fracture that was, the bone was pushing into my
Nothing else,
ACL.
we'll go out there, or-
I might have.
Is this the Dunkin' Donuts?
Come on in, please.
Yeah, it was great.
Are we Dunkin' Donuts?
What,
Yes.
It already feels like cleaner in there, you know, it's just pain right now.
I guess,
It's new.
Bob,
What?
we may have people out there for Birch Drive, which I have no idea why, they're not on the agenda, we never. Yeah, I have no idea. No.
Order of conditions.
Should we ask, I mean, I don't know if there's a lot, are there people out here?
Yeah, you just bring in, I think it's. We're good, yeah, ready to go.
No, we don't have it on the agenda, because we
Okay,
don't
do we
have.
have something to sign here, or?
We do. Of course we do. Yeah, this is the only one for this one though, because we've already done the other paperwork for that, as far, well, it'll be,
Do you all sign that one?
it'll
That's
be
the 48 conditions.
48. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Hey there.
Hi.
All set?
Good to see everybody.
Good to see you, yeah.
Okay, this is the.
Brought 'em last time, nobody ate 'em, so I was like, I didn't think anybody wanted 'em.
This is the 7:40 public hearing. It's a continuation of notice intent filed by Catalano Companies to construct a commercial structure, Dunkin' Donuts, parking lot, drive-through, and related infrastructure at 6163 Main Street. And the project is located within the riverfront and avoiding vegetated wetlands. Sorry that we've missed the last two. We didn't have a quorum for the first one, and then probably know there was a sewer backup.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago here in the town
Sounds
hall.
like-
Yeah,
So,
so sorry for the delay, but
It's all right, so we haven't really met, but we've actually had time to go back and forth with DEP, DPW, you know, other various boards. And really, we've submitted you the most up-to-date revised set, I think you've had for a little bit. And pretty much kind of worked up to a final set of plans that we can go through here tonight, kind of what the changes are. Just fill this out.
Good point.
You guys are gonna have writer's cramp. You're staying ahead of it though.
So, a couple of the comments, I mean, one of the things we were able to do is we were able to get out and conduct some more soil test pits. And specifically, we did 2 deep test pits in both of the infiltration areas. And the results of those were actually favorable. We ended up finding better material as well as a greater depth to groundwater. Given the fact that, you know, where we are in the process, we haven't revised the drainage design at all. So essentially, it's conservatively sized and conservatively offset from the groundwater. As we look at, the other thing we're waiting to do was to get comments, and we've had a chance to get feedback from DEP. And essentially, what we did in our response, which you guys were also copied on, is we went through how it is that we're meeting the redevelopment provisions of the Rivers Act. And really, as you look at this site as a whole, and a lot of the comments, you know, we've had a number of comments from both DPW, planning, yourselves, and everybody. A lot of the drainage comments were all just incorporated, you know, general housekeeping type things. The specific things from DEP were involved with, you know, how we met these performance standards. And one of the things was demonstrating that we weren't encroaching any further or any closer rather to the wetland resource areas. And essentially what we've done is we've held what the limit of the previously developed project is. As you look at the existing site here, everything, we're redeveloping the existing site. Essentially, the building is generally the same size as the existing building. The parking lot is smaller, but is a little bit larger. But most of, or all of the site is within that existing previously developed area. And the limit of, as you look at degraded area, which is your impervious areas, your building, whatnot, you know, the closest piece of existing is this garage here with its offset to Varnum Brook. We are no closer than what that existing limit is.
But if I may,
Yep.
but the average, when you look at the average,
Yes,
you're closer, that's,
sure,
because if you look at the existing,
yep,
you're at, what, about that 236 contour
correct, yep.
versus, on this plan, that's the 236 contour.
This is the 236 here, yep.
Right, you see, that's on the existing, roughly.
Yeah, roughly,
Roughly.
yep,
Right, if you look on the new plan, you're down here, almost to there. I mean, if you look
Yeah,
at the
yep.
proposed,
yep, so we can,
roughly, the 236 now is up about right here.
yes, yep, and this
And so
here
you're
is the existing
beyond
line here.
Yeah.
So we are closer. I mean, it's not right up to the existing limit of work. I mean, obviously, much of the existing, this is all previous fill, and it's kind of a steep slope that's kind of right at what that existing tree line is.
True, but it's lawn, and, well,
It's a mix of lawn, you know, there's
grass,
some areas,
whatever,
yeah.
yeah.
So obviously,
Versus
pavement is
pavement.
inside that, because obviously we're coming up, so we've got, you know, a slope that comes up, we've got a guardrail, and then the pavement. So really what we're looking at is, whether you look at the average, we look at the closest point, what we need to demonstrate and what we talked to DEP about is that the net result is an environmental improvement. And really, that's what we're looking to drive home tonight, and that is,
Is it, and you're talking with DEP, is it that because you're mitigating that pavement with that stormwater management, that is considered an improvement and not an encroachment? Is
yeah,
that-
the big thing was not encroaching what wasn't clear on the original set of plans that she was looking at, is that we weren't encroaching any further beyond the existing tree line. And what we did is we were able to actually go out and locate, you know, we show, you know, the tree line here as the survey guys pick it up, but we went out and specifically located what those specimen trees were. And we've called out on these plans that essentially we can save all of those trees that are kind of along the existing edge, with the exception, there's one maple tree next to the existing garage that there's just no way that we can save it. There's another maple tree over here by the dumpster, and just as it is, it's kind of elevated a little bit higher than the existing grade anyway. So, you know, as we kind of tie the site in, it should blend in nicely, and we'll be able to preserve that. So as you look at the overall canopy, there's one maple tree kind of located here in the back, where there's one limb that extends into the site that, you know, we'll probably have to limb that, but essentially we'll be working with the existing trees. And what we've also done is we've added some additional screening. I know there's a neighbor kind of in the back. We've talked a lot about lighting and visibility and stuff. We've added some evergreen trees kind of along here to also kind of bolster and provide a little bit more of a buffer between the development and the wetland resource areas.
What kind of evergreen?
Looked at some spruce. got,
Wet area.
blue spruce trees. That's the collection. These are spruce, this is a cherry, and then we've got a red maple, just trying to get some native trees to kind of bring that out. You can see,
Blue spruce is a native tree?
well, it's not an invasive tree. Yeah, I mean, it's a natural tree that you would find in riverfront buffer zone.
Would you
Out
rather,
west,
would you rather?
So, I mean, you can do a hemlock, which is more, but you just don't get the same screening that you would out of something like that.
Depends on your hemlock. I'm not a big fan of blue spruce in this area. To me, it's personal.
Sure.
It's a western tree.
We can certainly do hemlock. We're not really keyed into the specific species, just
Wow.
really the intent here is to provide.
Are there any native
like the
spruces,
idea of
black,
evergreen
red,
stuff.
whatever?
What-
Some
what-
that's gonna stay there.
Are there any
a
native
fir tree would
Spring
be a
right
much
now, I
better
mean, there's
choice.
no, I can see right up there.
Right.
But if we're gonna have something up there, I'd like to see some evergreens put in there. Once the leaves come back in, it's not gonna bother me as much, because all the maples will leave out and the oaks that are there now.
Okay, Tim, what
So
would
we
you
have
like? Would you
something
like
that's
hemlock, some
gonna
sort
help
of
me
a
there.
fir?
Well, hemlocks or firs, I think would be a better choice for our region.
Sure.
That we can just, obviously, we
suggestion.
don't need a new plan for that. We
No.
can just, there'll be a field
Okay.
decision.
Um,
A spruce is a specimen landscaping tree put in front.
Blue
door.
spruce.
It's- Yeah.
What about red and black? Where are they from? I got them up in Cape Breton.
a lot of them.
No, that is definitely a northern tree.
Yeah.
But they're not wetlands.
I don't know whether they live in my swamps.
Do they?
Yeah, all over the wetlands.
Okay.
So the big thing in mitigation, just to continue on, is yes, we're adding full compliance stormwater management. The other thing is you look at, historically, there's been some flooding down the river, is all the stormwater under the proposed design is basically gonna capture that, and it's gonna directly infiltrate. There is overflow that may enter the wetlands, but we're actually gonna send less water as well as polished water down there now. So we're gonna be directly infiltrating the stormwater now, which obviously isn't happening at all. Presently, the site, except for a small portion of the front that goes into Main Street, the whole site kind of pitches back into, all drains to the back. So that really is the largest improvement. The other things we were looking at was, we talked about the invasive species. We had a chance to look at that on site. It's still our opinion that, I think we can, when you got a machine on site, we can pull out and remove a lot of those. But again, we're open to it. I know there was some opinions expressed last time that it would be more invasive.
More
disruptive
disruptive
to
Yeah.
go in and pull
Was the
those out.
general-
Probably not effective in the
And,
long
and,
run.
and as you look at the long run with the surrounding property, so.
And those would be also probably beyond your tree line, so probably wouldn't be too unsightly for a business.
Right, right. In terms of the drainage, and this, again, just incorporates a comment from DPW, is we've added a manhole here. Just one of the things is, we talked about the initial first flush, to be able to clean out these. And this system, what it incorporates is these can all get jetted out and then vacuumed directly on site, so none of that water is gonna end up into the wetland area there.
How much are you gonna raise the elevation on that maple tree that you mentioned earlier?
It's gonna tie in, so it's about 235 now, and it's like 235, 236, so it's gonna tie into about what the base of it is now.
Which is how much?
It's mounted, I bet you it's around 236 now.
But it is buttress roots, so I think it'll cover those.
Yeah, I'm just worrying covering them too much, because you can kill the tree by putting too much soil over the roots.
Over the roots, yeah. And there's some flexibility there where we can grade that in. It's a good distance from the pavement.
I don't recall the tree itself, I don't know if it's a significant tree.
Quick question, so I know that there's improvements being claimed just because of the way the stormwater is being treated, but is there any green space within this area? Any
Yeah, we
infiltration,
had a
anything to
whole
promote?
landscape plan that kind of incorporates, there's plantings along the front, because I know there were some comments about maintenance and whatnot, and that was one of the things that was addressed, that, they're gonna continue using the same landscape that they are now, Babin, local. That's obviously gonna trim and maintain those to keep them low, because obviously, Steve wants to get the most visibility to the building also, not to have that
No,
grow.
but
So
this
there's gonna
whole
be,
area is paved, basically, so there's,
the parking lot and this access way around. All around here is landscape plantings, landscaping along the front, and there's some kind of along the sides here, and then we're proposing the trees.
okay, so the primary mechanism for infiltration is stormwater. In other words, we're not promoting natural infiltration, it's all gonna be directed in
Yes.
stormwater.
Yes,
These
yep, everything's gonna be collected and directly infiltrated, yes. We updated our operation and maintenance plan. Again, a lot of these just addressing some of the comments that I assume you've had a chance to look at. And the other thing is, and again, just to demonstrate and to try to pull that in, we revised the plans to pull in that erosion barrier. And one of the questions Steve asked is, do you guys accept just straw wattles for erosion control, or?
Yes.
I'll check.
Well, it's not the wattle, it's more the sock, because they're more bendable, the
Yeah.
contours of the wattles are straw and very stiff. And you have to kind of, backfill soil in and around them, so we rather see the sock rather than the wattle.
All right, any other comments, or?
We did address the snow storage.
Yeah, so we talked about it, but it was added to the operation and maintenance.
That they were
Essentially,
gonna take it
every-
off-site, it said.
Everything is gonna go off-site.
There was questions was there DEP with off-site
They're
mitigation?
gonna have to
or-
pilot before it goes.
Or we're not doing that? or-
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, we added a
Okay.
stockpile
Yeah,
area, yeah, so.
because it was
We-
really,
we-
really,
we talked about
because
that.
it was like really, you did add, the catch basin was because of the fact that there's so much distance between where it comes off the front of the parking area and it would go down, the catch basin's almost, it's fairly close to Donlands.
Yeah,
And so I think even the DPW had made some changes, we're trying to improve some
We
of
were
that.
talking about off-site mitigation, and that was one of the recommendations, but that was that the catch basin was so far off.
oh, it was too far off?
It was,
Okay,
we
yeah.
almost in front of Donald, so they didn't
Yeah,
do
yeah,
any
so
good
but they were adding a new catch basin right out front.
to offset it.
Yeah, it'll be a deep sump catch basin. Right.
That was gonna connect to the one at Donald's, is that it?
Yes, isn't that what you're going to do, or go in under the street, or?
Well, we are adding a manhole for cleaning.
Oh,
And that's
manhole,
one
okay.
thing that was mentioned, and at this
Yes.
point, I mean, we feel as though there's enough of environmental improvement with stormwater here.
Oh,
But
okay.
things we talked about, and I know Greg was working with DPW on, if we had to look at off-site mitigation, it would be specifically this manhole here, upgrading that to more of a stormwater, just to polish it. Essentially, you'd have a hooded catch basin with a deep sump, so obviously you're gonna start, right now
So
it's
that's
directly.
what you're proposing?
We can.
I mean,
You know,
I
that
don't know,
was-
would you?
Well, I think they were, as well, you can take your conversations with DEP, that they were looking for some sort of mitigation for the increase in pavement,
Yes,
because of an increase of almost 4,000 square feet, so they're looking for some sort of off-site mitigation. And they had suggested doing something with the drainage in the road.
Yeah, and I know Greg spoke with Ken. I mean, if that's what is gonna be required in order to make those mitigation numbers work, then it would be this catch basin, and essentially it would just be tear up and replace with a new compliant catch basin,
Okay.
like I said, hooded with deep sump.
Okay.
And that's to handle drainage from the road, not the parking lot?
No, well, you see,
What that
part of,
would- yeah.
go ahead.
No, what that would allow us to do is essentially, at this point now, we have an improvement, stormwater, to an off-site. So basically, it's something that wouldn't meet the stormwater standards if nothing was done. And now we'd be polishing that water, because these all collect down and directly discharge without any treatment.
One of the things that they're allowed to do is, and I don't agree with this policy, but this is DEP, is that if you can't, they're increasing the amount of pavement on the site. And so if you can't resolve something on site, you do it off site. Now, I don't like that myself, I'd rather not do harm in the first place, but anyways. But they were suggesting, DEP is if you do something in the road drainage and improve that they would count that.
They would count it.
well, they figured they'd leave it up to the commission, I mean, so that's what they kept saying, leave it up to the commission. So it's totally, I mean, do you think that this is beneficial?
Where does this drain man, where does this catch basin go at this point?
I mean, essentially, the conversation is around too, is based on obviously taking feedback from planning board and everybody else, you know.
Sure.
We can't scale back on the property in order to get all the cars off, so if we are looking at additional mitigation, it is gonna be targeting something off-site. And, yeah, this catch basin here, I mean, obviously, we're gonna be, you know, opening up this access way, they're gonna be doing the roundings and everything, we're gonna be working right there, so
And
it probably is the
this
lowest.
drainage here in the front now and in the future will be going
Yeah,
toward the road
there's
now.
there's a small amount that does, yep. So now you would be collecting and treating that. The proposed is actually less than what's existing.
Yeah.
So even though it still is going to the front, there's actually gonna be less going to the front than what's there now.
Mhm.
But certainly by adding, that catch basin, you're not only gonna be picking up that, but you're gonna be picking up, you know, obviously the road's crowned and all the way up to the next catch basin back, I mean, that's all gonna get treated.
Anything else? Okay.
So that's better.
So do you need a
It's not
decision
treated now.
from the commission on whether or not to go forward with this? With this improvement?
I think that's kind of a minor, I mean, we're not talking too much money, I wouldn't think, if we're talking less than $1,000, I would think.
Probably a little more than that, yeah. But
That,
I,
yeah.
yeah, so I mean, the structure and
Well,
everything.
you can replace the whole structure, or is what's
Whole
there now?
structure, yeah, so
Okay.
you basically
So
have
it's
to-
about $1,500, and roughly probably the 2,000.
Yeah, I mean, just, you're gonna be doing it in Main Street, so with detail, opening up the road and everything, you know, I'd put it at 3,000.
And of
So
course,
some- yeah.
so that'd be, something that had to be approved by the DPW, so we wouldn't
Yep,
do
and
it unless they wanted it to, we don't wanna create problems.
Yeah, and, yeah, I mean, we spoke to them about it, so.
So, okay, that was a good
Yeah,
idea.
and they've got a
They'll-
long-term plan on what they wanna do there, and this
okay,
would
so
be
this would-
approved, there's no question,
Okay,
so.
okay, anything else? Is that pretty much it, huh?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, anybody in the audience have any questions or comments? Okay. Okay, everybody okay with everything then? Okay. I move that we issue an order of conditions for this project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good luck.
She closes it out, right?
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you.
Have a nice night.
You too.
Happy New Year. Save me a donut.
You're gonna take the ethics test.
I haven't taken it yet, I can say what I want. I was gonna pay
On
for it.
camera.
We are on
Yeah,
camera.
exactly.
Camera and curtail my comments.
No comments.
Chairs out in the hallway.
I set them up.
8 o'clock, we're behind.
We're missing the 750.
We missed the 7:50.
It could be much worse.
Yeah.
You know, in Concord, you have to reach out, sometimes 10 hearings, and they open them all up at 7 o'clock.
I know.
And you got-
Lexington does the same
Everybody's
thing.
gonna sit
So we're
there.
just to sit and wait.
Lexington does the same thing, and you sit there and you wait and you wait, you don't know what order they're gonna call you in. And you can be there until 10 o'clock at night. Oh, right off the 5 minutes. So this is the 750.
Okay.
10 minutes.
Oh, the 8 o'clock is canceled.
Is that
This is the 7:50.
This is 750.
7:50, we're just,
One of them is, you said.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
oh, I don't think so. I think we're
It's
just,
okay.
I didn't know you checked on that one, right?
Okay, well, so this is the 750 public hearing.
Yes.
It's an abbreviated notice resource area delineation filed by Peter Montesanti, I hope I pronounced that right, for review of a wetland boundary delineation at 25 to 33 Pierce Street in Pepper. Okay. this lot was created on or before 2002. What happens when they divide it up? That's a different situation.
Yeah,
You didn't
then
look at that, okay.
we'll have to do the 50-foot, the 50-foot would have to come into play.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
part of that is?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
because we don't know what the plans are.
Do you have the legal notice fee?
Yeah.
Is that, you got that?
Yeah.
Okay. There should have been green cards for this too.
Yeah, got those two. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, that's a new thing I just added to this form, so.
okay, that
someone-
wasn't there, okay.
Have to be fixed, right?
Go.
You sign in?
Yes, wonderful, thank you,
Pass
sir.
it over to the.
Absolutely. Oh, it's dangerous. It's a nice pen. That thing's gonna be gone.
Just getting your fingerprints.
Yeah, right. Let's see.
Getting good at that.
Sure.
I know.
Trying to be as disruptive as possible.
Who's at the order conditions?
Yeah, no, that is. You should get that right.
Put that right here.
What's that?
I put it right here.
Okay, no, I got it. I must put it in the file. Getting down there on these
I
things.
counted it 6 signatures.
Okay, thank you.
And that's this one.
Yeah, 23 pairs. I just wanted to keep it organized.
30, something, 25, 30.
It is. Yeah.
Well, it just helps to go smoother.
Oh, yeah.
Are you guys waiting on me?
Yeah,
No, I
come please,
apologize.
that's okay. Please
I'm
go
like
right
sitting
ahead.
there writing along, I apologize. Good evening, Ken Lanier, Cornerstone Land Consultants, representing the applicant Peter Montesanti. Peter was unable to make it this evening, but looks forward to working with you guys on a future project here in town. We're before you tonight to identify the resource areas on the property. Ultimately, in this particular case, we have bordering vegetated wetland. We've identified those through the assistance of Leah Basbanes of Basbanes Wetland Consulting out of Dunstable. She had gone out and done the flagging. We picked up the flagging this year via survey out in the field, identified it on the plan, submitted the application along with the plan, and I believe that Paula had the opportunity to go out and review the wet flags. And it's hopefully my understanding that she's comfortable with the layout of the flags. And I'd be glad to answer any additional questions that you might have regarding the resource area delineation. I did separate the resource area delineation onto 2 separate properties just because it's such a large property. This is the overall size of the property here. And you can see we had 3 separate series of wetlands. We had an A, a B, and a C. The A series wet flags are identified on the left side. If you were to head up to Pier Street and end at the existing farmhouse that's there, it would be directly in front of you where the existing pond also has its location beyond our property line. And then you have the 2 remaining series of wetland flags. One up a little farther along as you get into the end of Julia Lane and Elliott Road. There are a couple of homes there that had passed along out beyond those with some fairly decent length driveways. And there's a wetland area that is abutting those properties off to the left. And then we also have an open kind of field marsh low area here behind 2 existing homes that are already on Pier Street. And that does also extend off the property into the abutting neighbor property. And ultimately, we believe that is the extent of the resource areas. We did file the application identifying all of the maps that are typically required with an ANRAD filing, FEMA, floodplain, natural heritage. And we don't have any of those other resource areas on the property.
Anybody have any questions?
No rare and endangered, you were saying.
No rare and endangered species. There's a perennial stream, but it's so far off the site, it's down on the,
Beyond 200.
exact, way, well beyond.
It's well beyond the
So as far as these properties go, it's, this particular, there's actually two parcels.
It is correct, yep, two
So
parcels.
these two
yes.
parcels, you can see it here. You know, this is the end of Pierce Street. It comes up, it goes one parcel, and here's the other one right here. The only thing is it's in the war pod, you were familiar with that, right?
Yes, I am.
There's a portion of it, so that would have to do with zoning.
Yep.
And some of the requirements for that, it's under 8100 of the zoning regulations, but that's not a wetlands thing. The Water Resource Protection Overlay
Right,
District.
and we're not entirely sure what we're doing with the property,
Exactly.
so, you know,
Exactly.
when we kind of cross that bridge, we'll be able to identify the remaining permits that'll be necessary.
Does anybody in the audience have any questions, comments?
This is Jane Holmes, she owns the farm next door to her, she came over to see what's been going on. But she's been out of town, she's not quite sure what exactly is being proposed for development over there.
Nothing so far. What they hear is just to have the delineation of the wetlands, the extent of the wetlands flagged.
Well, we've
And
noticed the water level going up quite a bit the last month or so, and so do you allow for that? Are you going to go out and I don't recall that anyone had informed us anyone was going on the property to do any kind of flagging or anything. Is that part of your normal way of business?
Typically what we'll do is identify with the wetland consultant,
Yeah.
where we believe the property is and where the resource areas may be. I believe they could have obviously come onto your property just to identify those areas that would then extend a buffer onto our property, just so that we would be inclined to file all the appropriate permits. We don't wanna do anything on our property that's gonna affect your property.
As a courtesy, they should have notified.
So they can just go onto the land without, even though it's all posted and everything?
You know,
We're
you
posted-
ought to do a land
We
survey.
are all the way on that whole
Yes,
area.
you ought to do a land survey. For something like this, they definitely should have notified you. It would have
Yeah.
been the right thing to do, I feel, but
Do you know when the flagging was done?
I believe it was
November.
November of this year.
Yeah,
So recently, ma'am, probably within the past 60 days.
Okay.
early
And,
November.
so I would think you'd wanna go out and check it,
Okay. I'd be glad to.
yeah.
no,
So,
it's
I
that,
mean-
you can discuss it, but you know,
Yeah.
it's not just vegetation or hydrology, the water level, they also use hydric soils. And they
I
can be
see.
done any time of the year, so they're probably
see.
very, I know Paul went
Yeah.
out there and checked it, and,
Yeah, here's the report from the wetland scientist. Did I give you a copy of this report? It may have been, oh yeah, it's in the, it's in that.
It's in here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, those are.
And it explains the soils and what's, what the soils levels were and, or what kind of soils they were, and the plants, the vegetation, just so
Page
you.
25.
Is that the right, can I,
Yes.
is that the
Yep,
correct?
same booklet.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
Okay,
Yeah, that's pretty good.
okay.
Would you be including blandings, turtle, and your endangered species?
Yes, sir, I believe that the
They've-
Natural Heritage Endangered Species maps the areas, as recently as, I believe the map we utilized was from Mass GIS and updated in 2012, but originally done in 2008.
Because they've been cited by me on the property,
Again, I can only go by what I have for.
just to make you aware.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And again, there's not a, you know, we don't have an idea of what we're doing now, there's a lot of land there. I know that Peter lives in your neighborhood, he's not looking to do a 40B or anything, you know, he's just gonna do a regular subdivision. But I don't know how, where, or where the roads are gonna go. To do that design, our first step is to come to this board and really identify the extents of the wetland, so that then I can determine where the extents of the buffer zones are, and then design my roadways to take that into consideration.
Ideally, she's trying to preserve the wildlife that's currently on the property.
Absolutely, and
without,
then
you know,
you're in the phone
creating
up at the top left.
Yeah.
Right,
Absolutely.
yeah. And
Yeah.
if you look at it, there's nothing on there but a farm, there's nothing else on there but
Right.
a farm.
Mhm.
And it's hay, and, you know, there's a cornfield there.
Yep.
There's a lot of, wildlife that continues to thrive on the property.
And I think you guys are actually part of the open space mapping now, is that correct? The farming area? or
No,
up to the
that's-
They were
left?
agricultural,
Agricultural.
But it's chapter
okay.
61.
It is
Yeah.
61, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
chapter 61A.
Okay.
So when somebody's proposing to build houses around there, there's a deep concern
Absolutely. I
of
understand.
conservation of the area.
And I think that Peter's plan is once we've identified really what's happening here, so that we can get a better idea of where we have for access to the property as well, then we'll be able to put together a design plan, and I know that Peter is definitely eager to show it to everyone in the neighborhood. I think you folks will be very well pleased when we finalize the design here.
So what's the timeline for that, do you know?
My hope is to have design plans completed by the end of March, and try to get into the boards in early April.
Okay.
So I'm 16 Pierce Street, and I'm, I think you identified it as C?
Yes.
C
Yeah,
is
you
the
have-
wetlands?
that is correct.
Is that, so this division where we live, 12, 14, and 16, was developed in 2004. Are there different delineations for wetlands from when they went through this process previously than there are now?
Yes, well, I would say that they are. I mean, I can't guarantee you, I didn't match up your maps with our maps, but ultimately, our delineation is based off of the wetlands as they exist in November of last year.
They're very close. I
yeah.
found some of the old flags.
Yeah, I don't think they're far off, but just so you know, that we don't just take someone else's plans and put them on our plans. So we've identified by survey, and of course, the wetlands technically fluctuate up or down. I mean, we know the water levels rise and fall, but the soils are primarily the same.
Okay. Any other questions? Hopefully he's answered them all. No?
Well, it's sort of preliminary now.
It is, it
so,
is. This is just a starting point for them, of
Yeah.
course. So, yeah, and that's all we're here to review, is just, we reviewed where the limits of the wetlands are. That's all we're here to do tonight. Okay, if there's no other questions, comments?
How much
I-
land is this all together again?
I knew you were gonna ask me. It's a good amount.
It's a
It's
good
like
amount.
I've heard good amount a number of times.
55 acres.
My goodness.
Yeah, so it's 500, so use that scale.
It's in the report, which I don't have a copy of.
I have it written down.
I can, let's see what I can do.
I usually have it, my fingertips. Yeah. Because I look at each one individually.
So the lower lot is 37 acres, and the upper lot is,
Of the lot sizes, what percentage of it is wetland?
of the lot size.
Right, like the first lot you just identified.
I would say not a ton, less than 10%. It's, for such a large property, it does have not a very significant amount of wetlands on it. You know, the section to the south of Pierce where it goes uphill over by Julia and Heritage Street, you know, that primarily is actually all field now. And, you know, it's very nice. And then the upper section gets much hillier as you go up beyond the backside of the existing home. So there's very little chance for wetlands to be on such a steep hill. And that would be the area that would be a lot less favorable. That makes sense.
Okay.
The slope.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've been up that many times.
Yes. So if I was to give you a number, I would say we're all of 50 acres.
Okay. I move that we issue an order of resource area delineation.
Second.
All in favor?
One other question.
Yes,
Is there any, or has there been any examination of, up on top where there used to be I think it was a hospital dump on top when it was Leon Shattuck's land?
that I don't know.
And would there be any kind of buffer zone needed from something like that?
I do not know. That would probably be a planning board issue. Or maybe Board of Health, but we're here just to review where they're saying the extent of the wetlands are around the property, off-site and on the
Yeah,
property.
I haven't been up there for a while, so.
Was it the Indian Hill ski area?
Yeah, up above it.
Up above it.
Up above it, there was dump trucks going up
Yes.
there, I don't, from one of the hospitals or something
Yes,
around.
yeah.
And I don't know if that was regulated or what the situation was. Once we discovered the hypodermic needles, I wouldn't let the kids go up there anymore.
I think that's when they did close the ski area.
The Indian Hill ski
Yeah.
area, exactly. It's in the
Because of
Open
it.
Space and Recreation Plan as part of
Yeah.
a environmental hazard. So the Board of Health has records about that, so that Board of Health definitely is aware of that.
That's
It's the
all.
old ski area. Yeah, it's on the ski
It's
area.
at the top of the hill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So the Board of Health would have records of it?
Yes.
Would
Yes.
that be here or
Yes.
over at Neshoba?
Nope, it's right here, or it was here before. No, it's right here.
I know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
they have the records here?
Yeah, Neshoba Board of Health.
Because it was
Yeah.
probably around
Yeah.
1980s.
Two stores you go around the corner.
Yeah, in fact, DEP even has it on their website, has all that information. But I know the Board of Health has a full file full of it. But
Okay.
that was,
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much.
I have your card. No, I don't have your card, I have your number.
Oh, thank you.
Right, right, right.
Very nice meeting you. Cool.
Thank
Nice
you.
meeting you too. Yes, very nice meeting you, sir. Thank you.
Next.
okay, how are we doing for time?
8:20.
Oh, not too bad.
We gotta do 8 o'clock, we're now 20 minutes off.
Now we're doing the 8 o'clock.
We're doing the 8 o'clock?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, makes it
That
easy.
makes it easy.
Okay, so next is the 8 o'clock public hearing. It's a notice of intent filed by R.H. Wilson, Inc. to construct an earthen berm in the bordering vegetated wetlands as required by MSGP SWPPP at 44 North Street. What does that stand for?
I got that one, yeah, that's this big report right here, multi-sector general permit.
This is for
wonderful.
stormwater.
Yes.
This is all regarding the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System Program of the Environmental Protection Agency.
Okay, this is a lot created on or before May 6, 2002. Okay, you paid for the notice of intent. How about the legal notice?
I have it, and I just need to know
Wonderful.
who to make it out to.
The
Is it
legal-
Town of Pepperell?
No, legal notice is Neshoba Valley Voice.
Neshoba Valley Rise.
This one, we don't have a DEP file number or comments or natural heritage, but natural heritage, it should be within a week or two.
Yeah.
Maybe a week.
We
I think a
sent it to
week.
them, we sent it to them on the 9th.
Yeah.
So I think they signed for it on the 12th.
Yeah,
So I would think that they think they have until the 12th of this month
yeah, yeah,
to review it.
exactly, and that's your green cards for us.
Yes, green
So that's-
cards and white slips.
Thank you.
Although I did promise Miss Wilson that I would take a picture of this check so she knew how to write it up in the register. So if you guys don't mind, let me do that, that would be phenomenal.
Are you here for this hearing?
No,
Doesn't
he's here for the
matter,
next
you
one.
still gotta sign.
Thank you
As long
very
as you're
much,
in the
guys.
building.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Matt.
Ken.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, good evening. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Kenneth Lania, Cornerstone Land Consultants, representing the applicant R.H. Wilson, Inc. We're before you this evening to request a notice of intent application approval to allow us to construct an additional earthen berm along the remaining area of the northern wetland line that runs along the northern property line of the R.H. Wilson site. As you may recall, back in 2012, I believe that the Wilsons came before this commission to construct a smaller portion of berm that occurred in this area of the property. That was approved by your commission under an RDA. In this particular case, the Wilsons have now filed what's called a multi-sector general permit, which is how the EPA governs stormwater discharges from industrial uses. And ultimately, that permit was filed in February of 2016. And I don't believe, did I give you a copy, Paula?
No.
Yeah. I mean, if you guys would like to see it, it's just this really long report that identifies all the stormwater industrial, but I do have a copy that I can give to you if you'd like. If you want to thumb through it.
Yeah, we're trying to keep the first floor in town hall
All right,
up there.
sounds good. All right, that's fair. So ultimately, as part of your NIPD's multi-sector general permit, you do have the option to try and achieve a status of called no discharge status for your stormwater. So part of being able to try and apply for that status would be for us to obviously stop the discharges from the property in the storm events from entering into the adjacent intermittent stream that ultimately ends up in the Nissitissit River, which therefore was previously a 303D impaired waterway, but I believe as of today it is not.
Oh, really?
Did they come
Did you
out with
see
their
that?
list today?
I went on the list and
Really?
it is not on the list.
I was, that's the last thing I
Right?
was doing.
So it was previously, when I filed this permit, MA 81-21 as an impaired waterway, but when I checked actually today, it was off the list. Which I find really interesting, seeing as they just took the dam down less than what, a year ago?
And they were calling it, it had to do with temperatures.
Correct, it was a lack of cold water assemblage.
assemblages,
That's
yeah.
correct. So fish could not breed appropriately. They didn't have the right temperature in the river
now they
itself.
can.
So
And it would
apparently,
confluence of the Nashua.
apparently they do. Well, at least the government thinks they do.
Yeah.
So
That's cool.
yeah. So as a result, there was concern from a third party that the Wilsons' property and their function as an industrial auto salvage location was detrimental to the Nissitissit and its eventual outfalls. We've done some baseline sampling as of February of last year. It's tough to say, seeing as only today's the 3rd. And we did year-end sampling 2 weeks ago, and the minimal stuff that has been done on the property has actually made the sampling results better than they were 10 months ago. So David's worked very hard to try and ensure that he
Of course,
has.
this was all during an extreme drought.
I don't disagree with you, absolutely. And again, I mean, we're sampling water that is running off of the property during storm events. So we're not super concerned about the drought per se of what's beyond our property. It's more of what's coming off of our property. So we're sampling water as it falls on the property itself, runs under the vehicles, over the vehicles, on top of the vehicles, and then into.
So it's a wet weather event designed
Exactly.
specifically to
Correct.
capture.
Correct. So drought-wise, we actually waited for a wet event to do our testing, because that's what we have to do. Yeah, and we did well. I actually just got the results from the Neshoba Analytical last week, right before the holiday, and we've had a reduction in, all of our own individual sampling requirements for hardness, metals, total suspended solids.
What exactly did you do to make this improvement?
Well, ultimately what David did is he shuffled some cars around, and then he, in front after this berm, he's actually excavated out just this, not excavated, but moved cars so that low-lying area can pool water in here. And what we're going to do is extend that berm in this NOI all the way down to the end of the property and actually provide that pooling area at the end of the parcel. So
So it's just a detention area
that
for
is
it to.
correct.
Okay.
Yep. So ultimately, we're looking to retain as much as we can on the property. And again, we're just trying to take steps as is required under the multi-sector general permit, is we have to do something every year that makes something better.
How did you determine the size of that detention area?
I did it based off of the HydroCAD analysis, and I believe I provided that analysis in the rear of the NOI that just showed the volume here for up to a 25-year storm. Yeah. So to go to a 50 and 100-year storm would require a much larger area. So we'll have to spread those around this area up here. So as of right now, our only requirement is we have a significant discharge right here between flags 20 and 24. And we're just trying to eliminate that from going out into the intermittent stream without any type of, cleaning and dissipation prior to. So that's the goal of our notice of intent application before you.
So this is gonna be ongoing, so
You'll
you'll
be
have
back.
to notice in
They're stuck with me for quite some time.
So drainage now is coming along here and leaking through, which you're proposing to
Firm and
deal
stop.
with.
That is
So
correct.
now all that drainage is gonna wind up here.
Correct.
So is that sufficient?
Well, ultimately, it's sufficient for it's better than what's there now. So sufficient is an interesting word. I mean, we're coming before you, so there is a storage area of wetland in the rear here. What we're trying to make sure that happens is what gets into that wetland and what previously had gotten directly into the intermittent stream has some area to clean itself out, retreat, exactly.
So, but there's no treatment, it's just a retention area,
That
it's
is
just
correct,
a
yeah.
collection.
Ultimately.
And you're like extending the berm on both ends.
I'm going, yes ma'am, all the way
See.
from wet flag 1 to wet flag 30.
Oh.
Yeah, because we only have a berm in the middle kind of
That
right
is
now.
correct. You have a flag
That's
right
just
now
a-
between 10 and 19.
I just want to point that out to you guys.
Oh, okay, so that's.
Yeah.
Yep, so there's an existing
Got
berm
it,
that David put in, it's about 3 feet wide, 1 foot high. And again, the reason here was, I believe, there was concern back in 2012 with the stormwater, correct?
It was more, we had a lot of vehicles back there
Is that, were
too.
they infringing into the wet line?
Yeah.
They were
Actually-
actually parked
Yeah,
into
that's
the
right.
wetlands.
Yep.
There were cars in the wetland.
I got it, all
I
right.
was gonna
So-
ask, I was trying to
Yep.
remember the exact.
So,
Yeah.
I know that we do have, we did pick up all the permanent markers, they're identified as one, they've all been installed, I've seen them all personally, so, David seems to be doing a real good job of keeping the cars out. We actually have had the third-party entity that theoretically forced the Wilsons to have to enter into this requirement for this permit, walk the site with us. They're comfortable with the layout of the salvage vehicles and where they're located. They are all outside of the wetland area. And again, by providing this notice of intent application to further protect the wetland, it puts us in a better position with this multi-sector general permit.
Are they comfortable with the existing burn that's been developed in
Yes.
terms of kind of giving us a sense on what to expect with the rest of it?
Yes, they are.
Paul, how about you? Was that?
Oh, yeah, when I was out there, the berm's still in good shape, the berm
Yep.
is there now, and the fact that they are going to extend it, they're pretty much encasing, to keep anything, and you could see where it could go through. There was an
Right,
area,
it's-
a low area that, would concern me.
It shoots
So-
right through here, and I don't know if when you walk out there and you walk down all the way, you'll see these two large trees, you can't miss them there.
No.
They stick out into the salvage vehicle area, and you can see them. And that is the route that the water takes, all this water comes down here and ultimately ends out exiting. So when we do our sampling, we actually sample here, we have a sample channel that we're required to take the sampling from. And in addition to that, we have our baseline sampling that's located right under the railroad bed as the stream heads
It
up
goes
to the
under.
railroad bed. That's correct.
That's the baseline? Why wouldn't the baseline be upstream?
Well, why would it be upstream?
Because it's before any contamination.
Well, we have a baseline prior to that, so maybe that's not the correct word. Our baseline levels are in the Nissitissit, And those were identified when some state agency did their entire review of the entire watershed of Nissitissit and provided us with baseline sampling information for the outfall of the Nissitissit. And we provided that.
So it could have been baseline as not upstream water quality,
Correct.
but it could be kind of existing water quality at that
That is
particular
correct.
location at the time of the event. And so then you compare subsequent events to this baseline value, whether or not that's the right nomenclature or not, I'm not sure, but.
No, I think it is.
And
You are doing
then you
example
compare
one.
it to see if there's any changes.
And there was a
Any
fairly
statistically significant changes, there may be some.
That is correct. So this is our baseline sample. This is the sampling results upstream and downstream of the Turner Dam impoundment of the Nissitissit River. So all our baseline items were here, and then we're trying to determine, because, you know, I hate to say it in a conservation meeting, but, you know, the solution to pollution is dilution. So ultimately, what we're trying to see is, was there any contaminants here coming from our property higher than the contaminants that they were received originally at the outfall of this BVW, which is over here, and enters into the Nissitissit. That was the goal of the original sampling, and technically all we're required to do under the multi-sector general permit. The additional sampling location of the flow leaving the site was a direct stormwater discharge identified in the field by the third party requiring the permit to be filed and ourselves while we were on 2 separate sidewalks.
Do you do any upstream sampling?
We do not, no.
What's the closest spot that the berm is to the wetland? At this
The
time?
closest spot would probably be less than 3 feet.
So this is kind of a special type of permit that you have to be able to build a berm within that?
No, I'm here to get a permit from you to build.
Well,
the
yeah,
berm.
no, I'm just wondering, you know,
This
this type
permit
of
here.
disruption in a wetland.
Yeah, this permit,
It's probably an
it's not
existing
really.
area that's grandfathered, somewhere,
Yes.
right? Is that
And so
correct?
this is a solution to
That is
a
correct.
grandfathered area. that-
And I think that back in 2012, I know Jack went fairly extensive providing you guys with the original maps of the salvage yard and.
Yeah, we spent a couple of our meetings on talking about it, at least.
This property's probably well before the Wetlands Act, isn't it?
Oh, it's
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's been there for
Long time,
generations.
79,
Yeah.
yeah.
But what I'm saying is, if there's a problem in a grandfather area that has to get this type of solution, you need to put a berm in, they're doing. You know, what guidelines do they have for doing that, to be able to work in such a close proximity to a wetland? You know, is that something that,
Well, I think the guidelines are still always gonna fall under 310 CMR, you know, the act.
Yeah.
But ultimately, right now is, you know, there's disturbed vegetation and, you know, vehicle tire marks
Yeah.
within 1 foot of the BBW. You know, he restored the area of the vehicles that he pulled out, but again, the vehicles are still, you know, within 5 to 10 feet of the BBW. So what we're trying to do is put another protection layer between the vehicles that have been there for 50 years and the BBW, so that we can ensure that if there is by chance a potential spill or something that could happen, although David runs a very clean shop, there is always a potential chance for some type of spill or contamination to happen. And this will provide us an additional layer of protection to the BBW, and allow us to see it happening prior to it entering into the intermittent stream and then running fairly rapidly out until the Nissitissit.
To answer your question,
Just looking at this, this
it's the actual
this is the
construction.
river, and that's
Yeah,
not,
yeah,
going
like-
to the
like is
berm,
there
the berm
a-
is really down here.
Yes, I'm
I don't
sorry,
know.
yeah.
I
That's right.
think
That is
that
the
you
berm.
just want to
Okay.
improve the situation.
yeah, exactly. Like if Paula were to see a situation like this, you
Yeah.
know, what makes you come to the conclusion, oh, we have to build a berm, and it has to be this high, and it has to, you know, what are the guidelines to doing it?
It's more like engineering, how do
Yeah.
you control it to make sure that there's no future runoff that actually gets into the intermittent stream? You know, it's, these there's like, I know there's like testing too. How often do you have to test?
Correct,
Twice a week?
quarterly.
Quarterly.
Okay.
That's a
That's what I'm
requirement
driving
for a number
at.
of years. So the main thing is making sure that the site, which has been there since 1920s or 30s, maybe?
it's way back.
It's a
You
long,
want to
long.
do a job, but you don't want it to impact species too, you know,
Yeah.
endangered species. And you want there to be a minimal impact to the site at the same time you do the job.
Right.
Right.
I mean, I guess what I'm saying is like, I don't know.
So what
So you have a
protections are we
berm,
providing?
yeah, what are other options?
Well, during
Is that
construction,
the
we're
only
gonna be
option?
providing the silt fence along the edge of the BVW all the way down the entire BVW. Prior to construction, we'll install that appropriately, have it buried the 6 inches required. But ultimately, we're not anticipating doing any vegetation removal or anything. The real goal here is to bring in material and build the berm, rather than doing any type of excavating. Probably the most amount of excavating we'll be doing will be installing the silt fence. The remainder will be bringing in vehicles with fill material to shape that berm.
Where do you get your fill material from? Is it clean fill?
I would definitely be clean fill, absolutely, and I believe we have to provide sampling of the fill
Right.
to,
Makes sense.
And that's been done already for the existing.
well, to
berm?
the
Yeah,
third
previously,
party.
the last time.
You know, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know how much I can say, but there's a third-party entity that is keeping a very close eye on the property, and all the work being done, and all the work to be done in the future, for somewhere between 3 to 5 years from last year.
And these permits are all required for like industrial sites in the future. You know, every industrial site will have a stormwater permit, and the fact that
Correct.
they didn't have one was kind of like, you know, someone was going through and saw a red flag, oh, they don't have one, we can,
Right.
let's see what's going on there.
And make money.
Yeah. And they went after salvage yards, and they're going after stone and gravel places. So those are, and the thing is that Pepperell, we've been under a waiver for our NIPD's permit, for our stormwater permit. So, you know, we haven't been sending out notifications to all these different groups that, you know, you need to make sure you're doing this. Some of them, EPA should be contacting them, but I call the EPAs to say, you know, what's going on? They said, well, we've had a cut in staff. We haven't notified everybody. So some people probably may not have been notified. We still have other people in Pepperell who are industrial users who probably should be having these permits that don't have them, and they don't even probably know. But, you know, we're losing our waiver, the town's losing its waiver, we're going to have to do compliance, the testing and the testing and the testing. But we'll have a report like that, several of them.
And very
Yeah,
expensive.
Yours will be a lot bigger
These
than this.
reports are very, very extensive.
I did
Extensive.
Hollis's, and I think it was like
Jeez.
4 3-ring binders. It was, yeah, it's pretty.
And this didn't result from a contamination issue, like, it wasn't like somebody saw a sheen out in the river, it was just
Just the
because
potential.
you can go online and you can see who doesn't have their permits.
And someone was looking around.
Looking to make money.
Yeah.
The greater good. All for the greater good.
And so now,
It'll probably help, you know.
A general question, is there a procedure either required by the state or just followed by the owner to remove gas and oil from vehicles on the on site?
There is, yep, there's a complete procedure that the Wilsons have permits and.
Is that
provide.
required?
I believe it is required, absolutely. I mean, it's a hazardous
Should be.
material, so
Should
they
be.
are. And they have, and again, in this report is the identification of all their waste oil burning permits, all their mercury removal, antifreeze removal, fuel removal. They have all those permits up to date, and again, I have to continuously provide proof that they are current and up to date. You know, not just for the next 3 to 5 years, but definitively for the next 3 to 5 years. But they had them all. It's not like they were operating, you know, subpar. I mean, this went really well for the Wilsons, although they would think that it didn't, compared to other sites that have been in violation and were not as clean and as prompt with the work that David and Roberta do on site. They keep they're the cleanest junkyard I've ever seen, you know, so, vehicle salvage. So I think that, you know, they should be proud, you guys should be happy that they're here because they've definitely done a fine job and they got out of this, you know, because of the good job that they did, so. And they continue to want to get better. I mean, we don't necessarily have to be here. you know, this was their suggestion to be proactive on this permit to make sure that they comply with as much, you know, of their own money coming
Me
through.
too, it's just after 8 o'clock.
So,
My son's in California, appreciate that, for you.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
So they're doing the right thing. They're being proactive. It'll benefit everybody, and really, that's why we're here. So ultimately, I guess I'll have to ask you folks for continuance because we haven't received all of the comments yet from the appropriate agencies. So whatever would, you know, appease the commission for a continuance day would be amenable to us. And if there are any other modifications or revisions that the commission would like to see on the plans, I'd be glad to wrap those up prior to the next meeting.
So when is the next meeting? Do we have anything set for the 17th?
Yeah, 17th.
The 17th, we just knew that we probably would have a continuation from this meeting.
Anything else?
No, this is the only one though.
So can you wait a month, or?
I absolutely can, yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, so.
I think it'd be better
February.
anyways, just to make sure we get the comments. I'd hate to set another meeting on the 17th and, you know, knowing the state agencies the way I
February
do.
7th.
February 7th?
I won't be here.
Okay. But at least we have our whole gang here tonight.
Yeah, that's perfect.
You got a ton of them.
Okay.
You got 4 of them.
Salt Lake City.
Wow.
That'd be
February
cool with
7th.
me.
All right, wonderful, thank you
Can I
very
get
much.
you to sign this,
Thank you, yes,
Ken?
ma'am.
Thank you.
I do, but it's been a while.
You have to sign?
Might do some
No,
process.
Ken has to.
Oh, okay.
Got a lot of stuff.
I'm showing it.
The one on the
I've
bottom?
only been out
Yes,
once.
with his signature.
Enjoy the mountain, but, it
Thank you
was-
very much.
Yes, thank you.
All
You guys have a great evening.
You too.
Our flight actually got delayed because it smelled like a flat that day, so we had to stay another day.
Last year was awesome.
Oh, God, no, this was years ago.
One more.
Yeah.
Quite different from us.
Yes. Okay, is there another?
We've done this a couple of times.
What?
I feel like we've done this a couple of times.
Yeah.
The Twilight Zone.
7.
Oh, you're at the clerk.
I'm just gonna put a rubber
One
stamp.
more, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
so the next is
Yeah,
the
those
8/10
tables.
public meeting, because the request for determination is filed by Merle Alderman to replace an existing failed sewage disposal system at 71 Lebanon Street. And the project is located within a buffer zone of a bordering vegetated wetlands. Resource area replacement to existing septic systems. The lot was created before May 6, 2002, so this local bylaw doesn't apply. They paid the fees. Legal notice, Kevin?
Yes,
I
it's
believe,
paid.
yeah.
Okay, you did that?
I'll set, I got that before they came in.
Okay, no green cards for
No.
this.
Now, the Board of Health hasn't approved this
They haven't-
completely?
They have not.
Okay.
They did review it, had some comments. They came too late to address. The comments shouldn't change the location of the system. There's a few details in the profile I think we need to add. And ask that we request the variance rather than go through it, but there's a variance that requires or approval for the use of the Presby system for groundwater reduction. So, this lot's, Mount Lebanon Street's out here, it's a long driveway into the back. Shirley Street's down here, it's kind of in that little plain. As you come up Mount Lebanon, you hit the big curve with the old chicken farm there, Lacapo's old place.
Oh, yeah,
He's just kind of down the hill and across from the old farm there. So there's a wetland, wraps around here, wraps around pretty much around the entire lot and cuts down across the driveway here. They had a Title V inspection, the Allemans, they're looking to move, they had a Title V inspection done. failed the inspection. I think it was starting to back up into the house as well, but that seems to have remedied itself for whatever reason. So you can see the lot in Mount Lebanon, they come down here, and the house is right in this, right in here, tucked in right as the lot opens up, and that's mainly because pretty much everything else is wet. So the well is here, just along the property line. The 100-foot well arc encompasses the bulk of the dry area. Got the wetland there, a little bit of wetland here. The existing, when it comes out, the existing septic tank is well under, where we're proposing new one. And the existing leach field, I think there's a couple of trenches kind of shoots off back in this area here. So, basically we're proposing that, I guess the existing system, I think it's one that's not functioning, and the other problem is it's in the groundwater. So here's the 50-foot buffer, this red line here. The leaching area, it's got to be 10 feet off the garage, we're 11 feet back, it's just over 50 feet from the wetlands, so we're kind of shoehorned in between the 50-foot buffer in the garage. Anywhere else, we'd be within the 100 feet of the well arc.
That's a tight squeeze.
Yeah, no, it's extreme.
And that's using a Presby system too, that reduces the size by 40%.
Exactly, so we're using the Presby, which is an alternative kind of leaching area. It allows us to reduce the size of the leaching area by 40%.
Wow.
You don't have a reserve area though?
We don't have a reserve. Nope.
It's not
I
required
guess
for
technically
an
this,
upgrade.
yeah, in my thought, this is the reserve, that the existing system failed, now they're putting in the reserve, and this is it.
In less space too.
That's what we're building, yeah. So the Presby, I think the groundwater was at 2 feet, 20 inches, 20 inches down in this hole, 2 feet up in here. So the Presby allows us to use a 2-foot offset to the groundwater as well. So the system basically is gonna start by sitting on the ground and coming up from there. It'll come up about 2.5 feet. So the new system does, it's got a new 2-compartment septic tank and a pump chamber to lift the liquid up and basically disperse it into the leach field or into the distribution box.
And the tank can be within that 100-foot?
Yeah, so Title V allows the tank to be within 25 feet of the wetlands. It allows the leaching area to be within 50. Obviously, most towns want you to be 100 feet with all that stuff, but for Title V, we're okay. So we did file the RDA. I mean, there's not really a lot of options on this one. Board of Health has not approved it yet, but I don't anticipate any problems, again, just because of the limited area. There's not a lot of options there.
Yeah, I don't think we need that 86-1 policy statement, because this is a request for determination rather
Yes.
than order conditions.
Yes, exactly. I'm pretty sure. I'm like, because I was reading it over before we started, so.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Okay, I move that we issue a negative determination number 3. This project is located within the buffer zone, but won't have an adverse impact on the wetlands, so a notice of intent isn't required. And also number 6, this is allowed by a local bylaw.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. So this plan will be revised, just because obviously we got some notes and stuff to change. Make sure, we'll get Paula a couple of copies of that, so that you have the same plan that the Board of Health's issuing the permit on.
Okay. Very good.
All right, thank you.
Okay, good luck, thank you.
Cool. That's it for tonight, for the things, wherever they are. Hearings.
There you go. That's enough, right?
Yeah. We've still got 6.
7?
7. That's the most I've ever said,
Really?
I think.
Me too.
But I've got a really bad memory, so.
Yeah, no, the days of Ellen.
The
you know,
days of like multiple,
you know,
big projects.
The activities, you can tell.
It's been so slow since I joined. This
Okay,
is like
so
the
what else
busiest
do we
I
have
think I've
here?
seen.
What else do we have?
A review of draft minutes for Jim, do you?
Oh, great.
We did the draft minutes already, so the only thing was,
Schedule of bills.
if people
Open
could look at the
space.
open space and recreation plan.
Yep.
Okay.
Ethics exam due.
Yeah, if you guys could look at the ethics exam, or send us, like I said.
Or remember to bring the paper.
Is the,
Oh,
is
you
the
do?
link for that on the website, right?
Yes,
The
there's a link,
ethics
and I
exam.
sent it to you, but if you go right on the town clerk's, on the town
Yeah.
website, town clerk's page, it's right at the bottom, and do it as a municipal employee.
Can you print it to a PDF, or you just have to print it, I mean?
You just print it, and if it doesn't come out with your name, don't worry, we'll, you can write it in, and, you know, because sometimes it doesn't, I know it happened to me too, this time. I've done it like I don't know how many times, but this time my name didn't appear, so, I don't know, it's very
Okay.
lengthy.
Okay, so that's it then?
Yes, so the next hearing would be on February 7th.
Seven.
Do we have one this week?
No.
Okay, then let's, that's it, let's close the meeting and see you in a month.
I move we close the meeting.
What?
I move we close the
Second.
meeting.
I'm glad we invited you, Rob.